The morning sun rose over New Haven Colony like any other day. Jake Morrison stood on his office balcony, watching the children run across the central plaza below. Their laughter echoed between the buildings as they played their games before school started. Jake smiled at the sight. This was why he had left his military career behind. Peace was worth more than any medal or promotion. 3,000 people called New Haven home. It was a good life on this world they called Kepler 442b. The soil was rich, the air was clean, and the children were happy. Jake had been governor for 5 years now, and every day felt like a gift after the wars he had seen. Lisa Carter walked across the plaza toward the school building. The children waved at her as she passed. She knew every one of their names. As the colony's head teacher, she watched them grow from babies into bright young people. Her own twin boys, Alex and Ben, ran up to her with dirt on their faces. "Mom, can we explore the old caves after school?" Alex asked. He was always the curious one, full of questions about everything. "We'll see," Lisa said, cleaning the dirt from his cheek. "Go wash up before class starts." The boys ran off toward the school fountain. Lisa watched them go with that mixture of love and worry that all mothers knew. At 12 years old, they thought they could handle anything. She knew better. High above the colony, ships moved through the clouds. At first, nobody paid attention. Supply ships came and went all the time. But these ships were different. They were too big, too quiet, and there were too many of them. Jake saw them first from his office window. The ships descended slowly, like giant metal birds landing in a careful formation around the colony. His old military instincts kicked in immediately. This was not a friendly visit. The ships were Zephyrian. Jake recognized their sleek design and the strange glow that surrounded their hulls. The Zephyrians were part of the Galactic Council, the group of alien species that governed most of known space. Humans had joined the Council 50 years ago, eager to prove they belonged among the civilized races. The largest ship landed in the plaza where the children had been playing moments before. The kids scattered, running toward their parents or teachers. Jake ran down from his office, his heart pounding. Whatever this was about, it was not good. Commander Vexithera emerged from the main ship. The Zephyrian stood nearly 8 feet tall with pale, see-through skin and 4 long arms that moved like flowing water. 2 smaller eyes sat above the main pair, constantly scanning the area. Jake had met Zephyrians before, but they always made him uncomfortable. They acted like emotions were some kind of disease. "Governor Morrison," Vexithara said. The alien's voice sounded like wind through metal pipes. "I bring official orders from the Galactic Council." Jake stepped forward, trying to look calm. Around the plaza, more Zephyrian soldiers emerged from their ships. They carried scanning devices and what looked like containment units. "What kind of orders?" Jake asked. Vexithera held out a datapad. The text glowed with official council seals and stamps. Jake read it quickly, then read it again. His blood turned cold. "This says you're here to take our children," Jake said. "All of them." "That is correct," Vexithera replied without any emotion. "Human offspring under 18 years of age show dangerous psychological patterns. The Council has determined they require corrective cognitive restructuring." Lisa had reached the plaza by now, along with dozens of other parents. They formed a protective wall around their children, who huddled together in frightened groups. The Zephyrian soldiers began activating their scanning devices. "You can't just take our kids," Lisa shouted. "They haven't done anything wrong. Human children display excessive emotional volatility," Vexithera explained like he was reading from a textbook. "They show unpredictable behavior patterns that could threaten galactic stability. The Council has voted. The decision is final." The Iowan scanners began identifying each child, recording their faces and biological data. Red light swept over the terrified youngsters as the machines cataloged them like inventory. Parents tried to shield their children, but the Zephyrian technology could see through anything. "Where are you taking them?" Jake demanded. "To specialized facilities where they will receive proper education," Vexithera said. "The process takes approximately 20 standard years. They will be returned to you as properly civilized beings. 20 years. Jake felt sick. These children would be adults when they came back, if they came back at all. And what would be left of them after 2 decades of alien correction? Please, Lisa begged, holding Alex and Ben close to her. They're just children. They need their families. Emotional attachment is one of the problems we must address, Vexithara said. Your offspring will be better served without such primitive connections. The Zephyrian soldiers moved forward with their containment units. The devices looked like transparent boxes that could hold a person. Parents screamed and fought as the aliens began collecting children systematically. The soldiers worked with cold efficiency, showing no reaction to the tears and pleas around them. Jake tried to contact Earth's diplomatic office, but his communication system had been blocked. Similar operations were happening across all human colonies at the same time. The Council had planned this perfectly, moving against humanity's children everywhere at once. Lisa watched in horror as Alex and Ben were loaded into one of the containment units, along with 6 other children from their class. The boys pressed, their hands against the transparent walls, calling for their mother. She ran after the unit, but Zephyrian soldiers blocked her path. "Alex, Ben!" she screamed. "I'll find you, I promise I'll find you." The containment units were loaded onto the ships like cargo. 800 children from New Haven Colony disappeared into the metal bellies of the alien vessels. Their parents stood helplessly in the plaza, some still fighting against the soldiers, others collapsed in grief. Vexithara approached Jake one final time. "Monitoring stations will remain to ensure compliance," the alien said. "Any attempt to interfere with the educational process will result in humanity's exile from galactic civilization. Your species will be cut off from all trade, communication, and protection." The threat was clear. Try to save the children, and humanity would be alone against a hostile galaxy. Jake watched the ships lift off, carrying away the most precious thing the colony possessed. The vessels disappeared into the sky, leaving behind only silence and broken hearts. The plaza that had been full of laughter that morning now echoed with the sobs of parents who might never see their children again. Jake stood among them, feeling the weight of complete helplessness. The aliens had won without firing a single shot, but as he looked at the faces around him, Jake saw something the Zephyrians had not expected. Behind the tears and grief he saw anger, pure, burning human anger that would not be satisfied with acceptance or patience. The aliens thought they understood humans, but they had made a terrible mistake. They had taken the children. 3 months had passed since the ships took the children. New Haven Colony felt like a ghost town. The playground equipment sat empty, rusting in the rain. The school building stayed locked, its windows dark. Parents walked through the streets, like sleepwalkers going through the motions of daily life without purpose. Lisa Carter sat in her empty house, staring at the twins' bedroom. Their beds were still made, their toys scattered on the floor exactly where Alex and Ben had left them. She had not moved anything. Every morning she woke up hoping to hear their voices calling for breakfast. Every morning brought only silence. Jake Morrison found her there one afternoon, sitting in the boys' room with tears on her face. He looked as bad as she felt. Dark circles under his eyes, clothes that hung loose from not eating enough. The weight of leadership meant nothing when you could not protect the people who mattered most. "Any word from Earth?" Lisa asked without looking up. "Nothing useful," Jake said. "The diplomats keep talking about negotiations and proper channels. They don't understand that every day we wait, our kids are being changed into something else." Lisa had been thinking about that constantly. Her background in studying alien psychology gave her insights that terrified her. The Zephyrians did not just want to educate human children, they wanted to break them. "I've been researching their methods," she said. "The cognitive restructuring they mentioned. It's not education, Jake. It's brainwashing." She showed him her notes written on paper because she no longer trusted electronic devices. The Zephyrians were using psychological techniques designed to eliminate creativity, curiosity, and independent thinking. Everything that made human children special was being systematically destroyed. "They think our emotions make us dangerous," Lisa explained. "But they're wrong about something important. Human children aren't just emotional, they're adaptable. They find ways to survive that adults never think of. Across the colony, other parents were reaching the same conclusions. Paul Davis, the engineer whose daughter Amy was taken from the mining station on Titan, had spent weeks trying to hack into Zephyrian communication networks. His wife had died in an accident 2 years ago, making Amy the only family he had left. Paul worked day and night in his workshop, surrounded by broken equipment and half-finished devices. Sleep was impossible when his daughter was out there somewhere, possibly being tortured by alien machines. His engineering skills had never seemed more important. The breakthrough came when Paul managed to intercept a data transmission between 2 Zephyrian facilities. The message was encrypted, but human computer systems were built differently than alien ones. What looked like unbreakable code to the Zephyrians was just a puzzle to a desperate father. The decoded message revealed locations, schedules, and procedures. Paul read about something called the Harmony Complex, a massive space station hidden in the Veil Nebula. This was where they were taking the human children, along with young ones from other emotional species. Paul ran through the colony streets to find Jake and Lisa. He burst into the governor's office waving printed copies of the intercepted messages. His hands shook as he spread the papers across Jake's desk. "I found them," Paul gasped. "I know where our kids are." The three of them studied the documents together. The Harmony Complex was described as a processing center capable of holding 50,000 subjects at once. The children were being sorted by age and psychological profiles, then put through different levels of conditioning. But there was something else in the messages that made Lisa's heart race. References to resistance patterns and adaptation, complications among the human subjects. The conditioning was not working as well as the Zephyrians had expected. "They're fighting back," Lisa whispered. "The kids are finding ways to resist." Jake felt something stir inside him that had been dead for months. Hope. If the children were still fighting, still being themselves despite everything the aliens were doing, then maybe it was not too late. He activated the colony's communication system and sent messages to every human settlement in known space. The messages were simple. "Our children are alive. We know where they are. We can save them." The response was immediate and overwhelming. Colony after colony reported the same thing. Parents who had given up were suddenly alive again, ready to do whatever it took to get their children back. Engineers, doctors, pilots, soldiers, miners, farmers, everyone wanted to help. Ryan Bell was captain of a merchant ship called the Star Runner. He had been hauling cargo between colonies for 15 years, living a quiet life with his wife and 2 daughters. When the Zephyrians took 8-year-old Emma and 10-year-old Sophie, Ryan's world collapsed. But when Jake's message reached him, Ryan knew what he had to do. He began using his shipping routes to carry more than cargo. Messages, equipment, and volunteers moved secretly between colonies as parents organized the largest rescue operation in human history. Dr. Maria Santos on Earth received reports from across human space. As president, she was supposed to maintain diplomatic relations with the Galactic Council. But she was also a mother of 3, and the thought of alien machines working on human children made her sick with rage. The government wanted to handle things through official channels, but Maria could see what was really happening. Humans across the galaxy were organizing themselves without waiting for permission from anyone. Parents were turning into warriors, and peaceful colonies were becoming military bases. Lisa worked with colony leaders to share intelligence about Zephyrian psychology and tactics. She discovered something the aliens had never expected. Their rigid thinking and inability to understand emotions made them predictable. They followed patterns that humans could learn and exploit. "They think we're chaotic and unpredictable," she explained to Jake. "But we're not chaotic. We're creative. There's a difference." Jake began coordinating with other colony governors to pool their resources: ships, weapons, supplies, and most importantly, people willing to risk everything for their children. The plan was simple in concept but terrifying in scope. They would take a fleet to the Harmony Complex and bring the children home. The aliens had made one critical mistake. They thought taking human children would make humans easier to control. Instead, They had created an enemy more dangerous than anything the galaxy had ever seen. A species united by love for their young and absolute refusal to accept defeat. Paul Davis worked around the clock to modify civilian ships for combat. Ryan Bell used his knowledge of space routes to plan approaches that would avoid Zephyrian patrols. Lisa studied every piece of intelligence about the target facility, looking for weaknesses the aliens did not know they had. And Jake Morrison, the former soldier who had wanted nothing more than peace, found himself preparing for the most important war of his life, not for territory or resources or politics, but for the simple right of children to grow up free. Word spread through human space like wildfire. The children were still alive, still fighting, still hoping their parents would come for them. And their parents were coming, bringing with them the full fury of a species that would never ever abandon its young. The aliens wanted to eliminate human unpredictability. Instead, they were about to discover what happened when you made humans truly desperate. 6 months after the children were taken, the largest fleet in human history gathered at the edge of the Veil Nebula. 230 ships from 67 colonies hung in space like angry stars. Cargo haulers, mining vessels, passenger, ships, and even a few military craft all carried the same mission: bring the children home. Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the New Horizon, a colony ship that had been converted into a command vessel. Through the windows he could see the other ships spreading out in formation. Each one carried parents, siblings, grandparents, and friends who refused to let the children face their fate alone. The Harmony Complex appeared on their screens like a metal city floating in space. The station was massive, easily 10 miles across, with docking bays that could hold 1,000 ships. Defensive platforms surrounded it like protective shells, armed with weapons that could destroy entire fleets. Lisa Carter worked at the intelligence station, studying the readings from their scanners. Her months of research had prepared her for this moment. The Zephyrians would defend the station according to their standard procedures, which meant humans could predict their moves. "Remember," she announced over the fleet communication system, "they expect us to attack like a military force. Organize formations, logical strategies, predictable patterns. That's not how we're going to do this." Ryan Bell's voice crackled through the radio from the Star Runner. "All civilian ships follow your assigned routes. We're not trying to win a space battle. We're trying to save our kids." The attack began unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Instead of charging forward in neat lines, human ships scattered in all directions. Some dove toward the station's lower levels, while others climbed high above the defensive platforms. A few ships flew straight at the heaviest weapons, drawing fire away from others. Commander Vexthara watched from the station's control center, his forearms moving frantically over different control panels. The human attack made no sense. They were losing ships, taking terrible casualties, but they kept coming from impossible directions. "Why do they not retreat?" he asked his tactical officer. "They have lost 30 vessels already." "Unknown, Commander," the officer replied. "Their strategy appears completely irrational." But the humans were not being irrational. They were being human. Paul Davis flew his modified mining ship directly into the teeth of the station's main guns, firing everything he had while broadcasting a simple message: "This is for Amy." His ship exploded in a ball of fire, but the distraction allowed 12 other vessels to slip past the outer defenses. Each pilot knew they might not survive, but they also knew that hesitation meant their children would suffer longer. Lisa monitored the battle from her position, coordinating with teams that had managed to reach the station's hull. Her expertise in alien psychology became crucial as human boarding parties tried to find ways inside the massive structure. "The Zephyrians think in terms of primary and secondary objectives," she radioed to the boarding teams. "They'll defend the most important areas first. Look for maintenance shafts and service corridors. Those will be lightly guarded." Jake watched the tactical display as more human ships reached the station. The cost was terrible. Good people, desperate parents, were dying every minute. But for every ship they lost, more humans made it inside the Harmony Complex. The first breakthrough came when a team led by Captain Helen Torres managed to reach one of the detention levels. What they found there made even hardened adults weep with rage. Thousands of children from dozens of species sat in rows of chairs, their eyes vacant, as alien machines worked on their minds. But mixed in with the conditioned children were others who still showed signs of life. Human children who had found ways to resist the process, who had helped each other stay strong despite months of psychological torture. Alex Carter was one of them. Lisa's 12-year-old son had spent months protecting his brother Ben and other younger children from the worst effects of the conditioning. When he heard explosions and human voices in the corridors, he knew his mother had kept her promise. "Mom!" Alex shouted into his communication device, a small unit he had stolen and hidden from the guards. "Mom, we're on level 7 section. 12 Ben's here and Amy Davis and lots of others." Lisa felt her heart explode with joy and terror. Her boys were alive, still themselves despite everything the aliens had done. But they were deep inside a station that was turning into a war zone. The rescue teams moved through the Harmony complex like avenging angels. Parents found their children and fought like wildcats to protect them. Teenagers who had maintained their spirit despite the conditioning joined the battle, using their knowledge of the station's layout to help the rescue teams. Commander Vexithara realized too late what was happening. The humans had not come to destroy the station. They had come to empty it. Every child they rescued was a victory, even if it cost them ships and lives. "Activate the emergency protocols," he ordered. "Begin immediate evacuation of all research data." But Paul Davis's sacrifice had damaged more than just the outer defenses. His final attack had disrupted the station's computer networks, making it impossible to transfer the years of research the Zephyrians had collected on controlling emotional species. Lisa led a team through the station's research levels, destroying every computer and data storage device they could find. The work the aliens had done to break children's spirits would not be used against other species in the future. The battle raged for 18 hours. Human ships kept arriving as word spread through the fleet that they were winning. Children were being evacuated from the station in groups, rushed to medical ships where human doctors worked to undo months of psychological damage. Ryan Bell found his daughters Emma and Sophie in a section with younger children. They ran to him with tears streaming down their faces, but their eyes were still bright with the curiosity and joy that made them human. "Daddy!" Emma cried. "We knew you would come. We never stopped believing." As the evacuation continued, something unexpected happened. Children from other species began asking to come with the humans. Young beings from worlds across the galaxy had seen human children resist the conditioning and maintain their spirits. They wanted that strength for themselves. Jake made a decision that would echo through galactic history. "We take them all," he announced. "Every child who wants to leave, regardless of species. No one stays behind to suffer." The Harmony complex emptied as rescue ships carried away thousands of young beings. The Zephyrians could only watch as their carefully planned program collapsed around them. They had tried to break the children, but the children had broken them instead. As the last rescue ship pulled away from the station, Commander Vexithara stared at the tactical display in disbelief. The humans had lost 67 ships and nearly 800 people. By any military standard, they had been defeated, but they had rescued every single child on the station and destroyed decades of research. They had turned a processing center into an empty shell. Most importantly, they had shown the galaxy that some things were worth any sacrifice. The human fleet began its journey home, carrying with it not just children, but the seeds of revolution across civilized space. News of the Harmony complex rescue spread across the galaxy like wildfire. For the first time in 200 years, a member species had openly defied the Galactic Council and won. The impossible had happened. A small, emotional race had defeated the mighty Zephyrian collective and saved their children. On Earth, President Maria Santos stood before the largest gathering in human history. Billions of people watched as she prepared to address not just humanity, but every species in known space. The transmission would reach worlds across the galaxy, carrying a message that would change everything. "My fellow humans, and all beings, who value freedom," Maria began. "6 months ago, the Galactic Council took our children. They claimed it was for the greater good, that our emotions made us dangerous. Today, I want to tell you what we learned from the data we recovered from. their facilities. Behind her, screens displayed the research files that Lisa Carter and her teams had found before destroying the Zephyrian computers. The documents showed the true scope of the alien plan. Human children had been test subjects for techniques that would eventually be used on every emotional species in the galaxy. The Zephyrians were not trying to educate our children, Maria continued. They were trying to eliminate everything that makes life worth living: creativity, curiosity, love, hope, the bonds between families. They saw these as diseases to be cured. The evidence was overwhelming. Species after species discovered that their own children had been secretly evaluated for future conditioning programs. The Corvin Republic, the Tau Syndicate, the Meridian Alliance, all had been marked for eventual processing once the techniques were perfected on human subjects. Commander Vexithera appeared before an emergency session of the Galactic Council, demanding immediate punishment for humanity's actions. His 4 arms gestured angrily as he spoke to representatives from dozens of worlds. The humans have committed an act of unprecedented aggression, he declared. They attacked a lawful council facility and stole classified research. They must be expelled from civilized space immediately. But the council chamber erupted in chaos. Species that had remained silent for centuries suddenly found their voices. The Corvin delegate stood up, her scales changing color with emotion. "My people want to know why our children were being evaluated without our knowledge," she said. "What gave you the right to decide that our young needed correction?" Similar questions came from across the chamber. The Tau representative demanded answers about psychological profiles that had been created without consent. The Meridian ambassador wanted to know why their cultural practices were listed as problems to be solved. Jake Morrison sat in his office, on New Haven Colony, watching the council proceedings on his communication screen. The colony was different now. Children played in the plaza again, but they were not just human children. Young beings from a dozen species ran and laughed together, all of them refugees from the Zephyrian facilities. Alex and Ben Carter had become leaders among the rescued children. Their months of resistance had taught them lessons that adults were still learning. They organized games that included children who communicated through colors, sounds, or even electrical fields. They proved that differences made groups stronger, not weaker. Lisa Carter worked with the refugee children, helping them recover from their experiences while learning from their unique perspectives. Each species brought different ways of thinking and problem-solving. The diversity that the Zephyrians had tried to eliminate was becoming the foundation of something new. "The children are healing faster than we expected," she reported to Jake. "They're teaching each other coping strategies we never would have thought of. The human kids are sharing their resistance techniques while the alien children are showing our kids new ways to think about problems." Paul Davis had died in the rescue, but his daughter Amy was alive and thriving. She had inherited her father's engineering skills and was working with children from other species to design new technologies. Their combined knowledge was creating innovations that no single species could have achieved alone. Ryan Bell commanded a growing fleet of ships that patrolled the frontier, protecting colonies from Zephyrian raids. The peaceful merchant had become a symbol of resistance known throughout the galaxy as the protector of the innocent. His ships carried mixed crews of humans and aliens working together toward common goals. The political aftermath of the rescue transformed galactic civilization. Species that had been loyal council members for centuries began forming new alliances. The Liberty Coalition, led by humanity but including dozens of other races, became a rival power to the Old Order. The Zephyrians and their remaining allies formed the Order Collective, claiming they represented stability and civilization. But their support was crumbling as more species discovered evidence of secret programs designed to control their populations. Dr. Elena Rodriguez, a human psychologist working with the refugee children, made a discovery that shook both factions. The conditioning process had not completely failed on any species. Instead, the children had found ways to help each other resist, creating networks of support that transcended racial boundaries. "The Zephyrians made a fundamental error," she explained to the Liberty Coalition Council. "They assumed that controlling individuals would control entire species. But social bonds, especially among the young, are stronger than any conditioning program. The children who had been rescued were growing up with a unique perspective. They had seen the worst that the galaxy could offer, but they had also seen the best. They knew that authority had to be earned, not imposed. They understood that diversity was strength, and that freedom was worth any sacrifice. 1 year after the rescue, New Haven Colony hosted the first Interspecies Youth Summit. Children and teenagers from across the Liberty Coalition gathered to share ideas and plan for the future. Alex Carter, now 13, addressed the assembly. "The adults are still figuring out how to work together," he said. "But we already know how. We learned it in the dark places where they tried to break us. We learned that it doesn't matter what you look like or how you think. What matters is that you care about each other." The summit produced the Youth Accord, a document written entirely by children from different species. It outlined principles for cooperation, mutual respect, and the protection of the innocent that would guide the Liberty Coalition for generations to come. President Santos read the accord with tears in her eyes. These children, who had suffered so much, had created a vision of the future that surpassed anything adults had imagined. They had turned their pain into purpose, their fear into strength. The galaxy was changing. The old order that had dominated space for centuries was giving way to something new. Species that had been subjects were becoming partners. Children who had been victims were becoming leaders. Commander Vexithara, now leading the failing order, Collective, watched these developments with growing alarm. The Zephyrians had tried to eliminate human unpredictability by taking their children. Instead, they had spread that unpredictability throughout the galaxy. As Jake Morrison tucked Alex and Ben into their beds, the boys asked him about the future. Would there be more fighting? Would other children be taken? "I don't know," Jake answered honestly. "But I know this. You and your friends have shown the galaxy something important. You've shown them that freedom is not something you're given. It's something you choose every day, no matter how hard it gets." The children of the galaxy had faced the darkness and emerged stronger. They carried within them the seeds of a new civilization, one built on the radical idea that all beings deserve to grow up free. The Zephyrians had wanted to create perfect order. Instead, they had created perfect chaos. The beautiful, unpredictable chaos of free minds working together toward a better tomorrow.